Clive Barker Podcast Audio Commentaries.
Thanks to your generous donations to our Kickstarter funding campaign,
Clive Barker Podcast presents Fundraiser 8 Sell. Well, welcome. This is episode 293 of the Clive Barker Podcast. We are continuing our A to Z of horror series with a commentary from J for Japan on Godzilla 1985 is the one we picked out of all the almost 30 Godzilla movies. And welcome, Ed and Nina are here with us today.
Hey, hello.
Hello.
Hey. Good.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa.
What does that mean? Does that mean hello?
Yeah, it means good day.
Good day. Konnichiwa.
Yep. And Konbanwa is good evening. I was trying to think of good morning, and my mind blanked.
Well, the inevitable question is,
mushi,
what's
mushi.
good night?
We're saying hello. Mushi mushi.
You only say that on the telephone.
Right.
When you're answering. But yeah, so and of course, good afternoon or good morning. It's afternoon for you, Jose. How's it going?
Good afternoon, good evening, or good night.
Yeah.
Right. And to all of the boat sets out to sea.
and the one closest to the Pacific Rim now is it's Ed and Nina, right? You guys are near San Francisco and Hayward,
Bay Area.
Yep.
I'm farther west than they are.
Are you?
Right.
Yeah.
And further up
Alaska.
north.
Yeah.
So yeah, J is for Japan. So in the A through Z of horror, Clive Barker and Stephen Jones talk a little bit about the influence of Japanese movies in cinema, and they go to talk more about Tetsuo because it's more body horror.
Tetsuo the Iron Man,
yeah, and the body hammer.
I saw that in the theater.
Did you?
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Here in the Bay Area, you could see some of these films in smaller, art house type theaters.
Yeah. I'd been to the Castro Theater once, and it was such an amazing experience because there was an old man there playing a Wurlitzer.
That for the
comes up out of the floor of the stage in front of the silver screen. And it was just such a great experience.
Yeah, that's a beautiful restored old theater.
Yeah. And so they also mentioned Godzilla in the chapter. Yeah. So since Godzilla seems to be a much more fun experience to make a commentary, we decided to go with Godzilla, right?
Yeah, and
what were the other films?
We had
What were the other Japanese films?
What was that?
What were the other Japanese films that are mentioned?
Tetsuo the Iron Man and Tetsuo 2 the Body Hammer. That's what they actually spend a lot of time talking about in this chapter because of the body horror stuff. I guess that appeals a lot to Clive Barker.
And we were going to pick Godzilla 1954.
The original classic.
Yeah. But then the more we got into it, we realized, Ed, you had some experience with Godzilla 1985. And also the director, I guess the producer of the American version, not the director, was also
had a connection to Hellraiser.
Tony
Randel.
Tony Randel, yeah. So and there's even some music from Christopher Young in here. So
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so thought it crosses over quite a bit more. Than the original.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
So 2 connections to Hellraiser and the world of Clive Barker.
Yeah,
that's right.
Let me mention a little bit about that. Tony Randel apparently, as producer, had the executive, decision-making ability, and there are some strange, I guess they're just rumors. This isn't anything totally confirmed, but apparently they were talking to, not only Raymond Burr but to Leslie Nielsen about being in the American version of the film and sort of giving it more of a comedic tone.
Yeah.
And they even got a hold of for a sponsor, for the product placement, Dr. Pepper. and they had Dr.
Yeah.
Pepper in the American version.
You can find the Dr. Pepper commercials on YouTube with Godzilla.
In an interview with Tony Randel, they asked him about this thing about Leslie Nielsen and making it a comedy, and he said no. That is not
Yeah.
true. That's just a rumor, and he never talked to Leslie Nielsen.
Right.
Right. And also I've heard that the tone of, the film, like if Raymond Burr had anything to say about it, there would not be a comedic, jokey approach, to the American Godzilla, or he would have nothing to do with it. He really liked the involvement with his original black and white 1954 appearance in Godzilla. And since he liked it so much, he wouldn't have anything to do with ridiculing Godzilla. He liked
there
Godzilla.
is that jokey character that's in there with him that says like
Comic relief.
Yeah, that's quite the urban renewal program they have there. So it's like, and in that moment, it's like, oh God,
Damn.
Yeah, he's
Yeah, what a way to make a bad joke at the time when people are dying.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, somebody should have said, "Get out."
Yes.
You're fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But was Raymond Burr in the scene in that?
Yeah, he gives him a withering look.
Yeah.
But anyways, they asked Raymond Burr to be the one to do the product placement, to drink the Dr. Pepper, and he refused.
Yeah. And it's totally obvious. Like, one person is drinking one, and it's out of place because nobody else is drinking soda.
Yeah, there's like a soldier, right, at a console in a scene. There's like a close-up of a guy, and is like so concerned, and he takes a sip out of his Dr. Pepper, and it's like, oh my God.
And then later they walk by a machine that's only Dr. Pepper.
Hey, it was 3 days of shooting for the American version, so, whatever money they could get.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, didn't you say, Joe, that you found somewhere that it said that Raymond Burr was only on set himself for just one day?
Yeah, it was just on set for one day. Yep, it was that interview that we might bring up here as we watch the movie, the interview with Tony Randel.
Yeah.
And there's also an interview with Lisa Tomei, who was his girlfriend at the time, and she was also involved in producing this 3-day shoot. And yeah, they talk a lot about how that happened, and they're pretty nonchalant about explaining how much of a shoestring thing this was. And New World Pictures, Roger Corman stuff, right, where they would shoot. Sometimes they would shoot a movie in 5 days if they had the sets. So New World Pictures really was very efficient at what they did.
And also, was that her? I mean, was she Tony's girlfriend?
Yeah, I think so. He says at the time they were dating. Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't want to clarify that it wasn't Raymond Burr's girlfriend.
No.
Yeah.
No, Raymond Burr was gay.
So
yeah.
So, Jose, you've probably seen a lot of Mystery Science Theater 3000, right? And the Ator movies, like Ator the Fighting Eagle and Ator the Blade Master, which I think they call it Cave Dwellers. I think in
Cave Dwellers. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So the voice actor of Ator is the same guy, Gregory Snegoff, that did the voice of the Prime Minister in this movie.
Oh, okay.
I could not, because I used to, before even it was on Mystery Science Theater, I used to, with my Dungeons and Dragons group, we used to watch the Ator movies over and over just to laugh at them. Yeah. And so I could not get past hearing the Japanese Prime Minister talk with Ator's voice.
Yeah. I think he also did other voices, like he did voices for Robotech, which I grew up watching.
Yeah.
Robotech, which was, of course, that mix of two different animation shows, right?
Yeah.
Right. There's Macross and I forgot which one was the other one.
Cross, I think, is the name of
it.
Yeah.
And I think he also played a voice in My Neighbor Totoro from the what's the name of the studio? Jeez.
Man. Well, there's two different American versions of that.
Miyazaki, yes.
Yeah. There's because it used to belong to 20th Century Fox, and then Disney got it, and they completely changed all the dubbing and stuff.
So that's cool. But
I like Miyazaki's work.
Yeah.
Yeah, Studio Ghibli is amazing. They put out a new movie now, which is entirely made in CGI, and I'm having conflicted thoughts on that.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
well, Miyazaki's passed away now, right?
Did he? I think so. Yeah, like a couple of years ago, maybe.
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't
Did he
know.
do Nausicaa? Is that
Yes.
Nausicaa?
Yeah,
also?
yeah, that's it.
Nausicaa.
Yeah, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind.
Yeah.
So we didn't do the Godzilla 1954, 55 with Raymond Burr, but now we have 1985 with
Right.
Raymond Burr. And I don't know what version you guys have listening to this, but it's kind of hard to find, I think.
Yeah.
It came out, when it came out, I think it was only the Japanese version that was released in Blu-rays and stuff. But there was, I think, a Laserdisc and maybe a DVD version in
And a
2016.
VHS. It was always out on VHS.
Yeah, and VHS, of course. VHS was a great format
Yeah.
where everything came out. And so I think in 2016 there was a release of Godzilla 1985, the American version, because otherwise it's called The Return of Godzilla. So if you have that, that's the version we're going to use. It should start with a New World Pictures logo, which Hellraiser fans will feel nostalgic about. And who wants to do?
You'll do the countdown.
Sure, I can do the countdown.
When the
I've
logo
got-
fills up the screen, or
I
Or
just
is it
have it right
start?
at the beginning of the
Yeah.
whole thing.
alrighty.
You can see the blue horizontal stripe, or I mean the diagonal stripe there in the screen.
Yeah, that's what it looks like a. It
I
hasn't
got a-
zoomed out yet. Okay.
I get a nice fuzzy feeling every time I see the New World Pictures logo. And I guess we're going to go with, if everybody's ready, I'm going to go and count down before we play the play button, which is 3, 2, 1, play.
All right, here we go.
We can sync up. Okay. So yeah, New World Pictures.
I have to
Go
say
ahead.
that I haven't seen this in the U.S. version until just a couple of days ago again, in a long time, because I deliberately went out of my way to throw out all the Godzilla movies I had that were only English dubbed, so that I could replace them all with, once DVDs started coming out and that you could get the Japanese versions with subtitles, I threw out all the English dubbed ones because they, in a way, they're so disrespectful to the original movies.
You're
Yeah.
a purist.
Yeah.
True.
Well, and
So-
to go take that a little further, when I lived in Japan, I took a Japanese cinema class, and there was something that we never really talk about in like U.S. history, but when the U.S. was occupying Japan, we censored their art. Right, so if you wanted to make a movie that was anti-nuclear energy, if you just do that outright, America would say no, you can't do that. And so,
Oh, there were several rules. They had no suicides allowed in films
Yeah.
either because they would, enrich the kamikaze concept.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah. So to make a sort of anti-American or anti-nuclear movie, you
Statement,
make
yeah.
you make a movie like King Kong and make it about a giant radioactive monster.
a metaphor.
Yeah.
So we open 100 miles off the shores of Tokyo, and we got the fishing boat, the 5th Yamata Maru.
Yeah, now you guys know the story about why there's a fishing boat in this film, and in any Godzilla movie, it's about the story of after the original Hiroshima and Nagasaki blasts, the American military was doing tests at Bikini Atoll, and
Yeah.
they thought that they were going to do a certain megatonnage or something like that, and it was a way bigger blast than they realized. Of course, it's always an experiment. And there was a fishing boat that was caught in the blast and was irradiated, called the Lucky Dragon Number 5. And so when you see this boat and it's got this Maru title, it's supposed to be representing this Lucky Dragon Number 5 that was irradiated, and all these people were poisoned with radiation.
Oh, I see. So does Maru stand for dragon, Ryan?
It means, well, no, I don't think so. It means
Yeah, I don't think the title has anything to do with the original boat title, but I've just heard that that's what they
Maru.
Because the lucky.
It just means circle.
Oh, okay. Because the Lucky Dragon 5 was called the Daigo Fukuryu Maru, and this one is called the Yahamata Maru. So I was thinking if there was any sort of connection. But when you see this,
Maru was the name of the company, and that the boat was called the Lucky Dragon number 5 because they must have had more than one Lucky Dragon in that fleet, you know.
So when I saw Godzilla emerge from the water here, I thought it was supposed to be a volcano. Of course, we know we're watching a Godzilla movie, so we know it's going to be Godzilla. But they make it so it looks almost like there's a eruption of a volcano with lava coming out. But it's actually, and here we see Raymond Burr. We see his eyes coming up.
He's sitting in the dark, and you kind of wonder, like,
his old typewriter.
Yeah.
He has an
weird?
ominous
He's got a
feeling.
Typewriter and a bottle of whiteout.
Old timey.
The old black and white bottle of whiteout.
I don't think that many people were using typewriters back then. So.
They still were, though. Yeah, they still were.
Yeah, I know. I mean, our friend Marcus.
PCs all in their houses yet.
Yeah, and there's a resurgence now, especially if you're a bit of a hipster, I guess. Our friend Marcus Williams just bought a typewriter to type his poetry. So,
oh wow!
And here's Bruce Lee.
Apps for typewriters. You can make your phone or your tablet sound like a typewriter.
Yeah. So Ryan, this guy totally looks like Bruce Lee, right?
Yeah, right?
Sunglasses.
Yeah.
Is that the photographer guy or no?
Yeah, the photographer guy.
The newspaper man, news guy.
And of course, a Sony boombox right there. Because it's
product
a Japanese movie. Yep.
Product placement.
So it looks like there's
one of the things I was going to mention real quickly is that this movie, being that, there was a 10-year gap between the last Godzilla movies in the 70s and this movie in 1985 or early 84. Actually, it was released in Japan in late 84 and took a whole year to come to America in 85. But it's basically very similar to what we were going to watch with the black and white classic, with it being serious in tone and the way that Godzilla is considered to be a force of nature as opposed to a good guy, a protector of children and stuff.
It's a little hard to follow the timelines of Godzilla movies, but almost all of them, almost every Godzilla movie acknowledges the first movie as having happened, and then the current movie is a sequel.
And this is no exception. This one is no exception.
Yeah, there was a time when they kept rebooting the series. Every time a new Godzilla movie came out, it was like, oh, it's another continuation of the first one. But here the photographer is going into the boat and he's found some mummified bodies, which I thought it was weird until we will see a little further up why they're mummified.
Yeah. And in the eras of the Godzilla movies, this era that's kind of kicked off by Godzilla 1984 is the Heisei era, is the first one where there's a series of Godzilla movies that are all interconnected. So this is my favorite of all of the series just because of that, and I love that they're interconnected, and we've got characters that run throughout that whole series up to 96 when Godzilla died. Right.
So they call this the Heisei era because of Emperor Akihito, which he ruled from, I think, 1989. Wait, no. When did he take?
No, earlier than that.
Earlier than that, right? Like 84 or 85, and then he abdicated in April of 2019. This was called the Heisei era because it was like the era of peace,
right?
And that's why
it's not exactly a 1-to-1, with those
Here's a troglodyte fight
eras, but it's close.
Yeah. There's your creature. That's explaining the mummification there,
right?
Yeah, this has a name. This is actually a giant sea lice, and they had a name for this thing. It was called, what was it called?
And this is supposed to come from the in between the scales, I think, of Godzilla. Like he has parasites living on his body, and so when he came up from the depths, and the other, the submarine or the boats or whatever that it's like an island is rising beneath the ship. They run aground on Godzilla.
Yeah. And the sea lice, because they feed on his radioactive blood or whatever, they get huge.
They're mutated to gigantic size.
They brought this up on Cloverfield, the movie. They brought up this idea that
the bodies of the Cloverfield beasts are covered with parasites as well. Yes.
And they would attack people and make their heads explode and suck out their blood, which is kind of what they do.
Or inject them with some sort of parasitic little vermin that would burst them out like the Alien, like a chest burster or something.
I kind of wish that Cloverfield wasn't done in that style of
like the found footage.
Found footage, yeah.
So the giant sea lice that we see here, they were called Shokirus, giant sea louse. They appeared for the first time in this movie.
And they're real, huh? They're just a giant version?
Well, they're not this big.
Right.
But,
They're microscopic or something, probably, in real life.
Yeah.
That reminds me of, I think it was a Ray Bradbury story about a guy that went time traveling to hunt dinosaurs. After he killed the dinosaur, I think it was a like
he stepped on a butterfly. He stepped on a butterfly.
No. It was a parasite came and killed him.
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of crabs from the dinosaur.
And so what was implied here was that the Shokirus were killing the surviving crew members and draining their bodily fluids, leaving behind these desiccated husks.
Yeah.
You know what? I like the beginning because it's like a horror film. It's like like the Attack of the Mushroom People is very creepy and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And this portion of the film when you're on the boat and stuff, very creepy.
And it's like they wanted to say, okay, this Godzilla movie, we're getting serious again. This is not...
Yeah, this is not going to be a fun, there's no twins singing Masuda.
Well, that was more Gamera, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's Mothra.
Oh, yeah, Mothra, not Gamera. Mothra, yeah. I think they're going to bring the two little singing ladies back in the new... didn't they bring those back in like the King of Monsters or whatever? Yeah,
the Godzilla King of King of Godzilla King of Monsters. Yeah,
I need to catch up on those.
Yeah.
Have you been watching those?
They were human-sized twins. They weren't like little fairy ones, but
little fairy people. Yeah. So this guy he's got the scoop of a lifetime, right? He's got the scoop that possibly Godzilla's back, and this boat was. And then the guy's like,
they won't let him print it.
National security reasons. You can't publish any of this.
Yeah, and since it's not American, they're like, oh man, that's too bad.
And also, that what's funny is, spoilers, this girl that later on you find, he goes to visit this scientist and she's an assistant, and it's her brother who's one of the members of the boat, didn't die.
The one survivor, yeah.
How convenient is that?
Reporter guy, he can't keep his lips closed.
Yeah.
He's going to see the biophysicist Hayashida, which, of course, is the name on the front of this building because he's probably the main scientist there, like they usually do.
Right, and scientists all have their names plastered on the buildings, right?
Like the Chenard Institute with Dr. Chenard.
Yeah. The neon sign.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a little skeleton of a dinosaur that's going to keep popping up in different scenes, and you're going to see that here in a bit, which is, of course,
it's always in the background on a shelf.
Yeah.
One thing that's kind of bugged me about Godzilla movies is that they never because Godzilla got turned into a skeleton in the first movie.
At the end of the first one,
and the way they explain it in most of the Godzilla movies when they're a sequel to that movie is not very good. Like in this one,
well, they say it's not the same Godzilla. They say this is his brother.
Sometimes they say that. In this movie, they just say they never found the body.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing that pissed me off. Didn't they use Godzilla's bones to build like a Mecha Godzilla at one point?
That's not at the same timeline as this one.
Right.
None of those films exist in this world.
Exactly.
Only the 1954 and then this one.
Yeah. It was the Oxygen Destroyer.
Yeah.
Right. Which was a great idea. I love that in that movie.
Sure.
In fact, my friends visited Toho, and they got to see the original Oxygen Destroyer prop still in existence on display there.
No kidding.
Yeah, they even let them pick it up. They got pictures of themselves holding it and stuff.
Cool.
I like the part where the scientist is explaining that Godzilla is like a literal nuclear weapon. I mean, yeah, we get that.
Yeah, especially when you got to nuke him to destroy him. That just will give him more energy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always everybody's go-to. Let's drop a nuclear bomb on him.
Right.
And here's
Except
the
for in
girl.
some of the other films, then they start coming up with Mecha Godzillas and bringing Ghidras from space, or just all kinds of ideas.
And aliens come into the mix as well. Aliens who look just like humans, except they wear sunglasses.
Put like a little box on the back of his head, which will allow somebody with psychic power to control him. Or
they're aliens that secretly are cockroaches, and aliens that are secretly guys with gorilla masks.
Right, like like Spectre Man.
Yeah.
But this is a heck of a coincidence that the girl working for the scientist Hayashida is actually the sister of the guy who was in the fishing boat.
Yeah.
Coinky dink? I think not.
And nobody can tell her that her brother's okay.
Right. Yeah. Not even her boss. It's like later on when this idiot lets it slip. If I were her, I would go in there and say, "I quit, you son of a..." You know what?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's national security. I think people will be more secure if people knew that Godzilla might be coming back.
Yeah.
I know it's like taking across a panic.
Well, and they do they do give up on that after a little while.
Well, eventually, yeah.
They do a press conference about it.
Yep. There's absolutely no way they can keep it hidden, especially when Godzilla starts walking towards the Tokyo Bay.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
I think it's kind of hard to hide the fact that he's coming ashore.
So, and no disrespect to Tony Randel, but it really bugs me that in order to import a movie, there's this presumption that you got to put a white guy in it, and give him top billing.
Yeah.
Well, it's been like that forever. I mean, and especially Japanese movies end up being remade for American audiences, like The Ring, Dark Waters.
Yeah, but the Ring is a remake. They didn't take the original movie and add white people into it.
Well, yeah, but it's a remake where in the original movie everybody is like Japanese, but then they make the protagonist like an American living in Japan.
Yeah.
Right.
It's Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think. Right.
Yeah.
Yes. They also kind of do the opposite where, like, for instance, like here in America, they'll take a Japanese character like the Guyver. They made a live-action Guyver movie with Screaming Mad George
with Mark
Steve
Hamill.
Wang. And they put Mark Hamill in it, because he's an American icon Star Wars actor, that will bring you more butts in the seats, supposedly.
Oh, here we can use some of our trivia. These actors are not really Russian. They are Australians and Americans and British, and they brought in a voice coach.
And even a Spaniard or a...
Hey.
Yeah, Spaniard.
The captain looks like Will Ferrell. A little bit.
Western actor they could round up.
I do notice one thing. Like, I don't know if you noticed it, Ryan, if you compare your audio from the Japanese original to this American version, the audio in this one is better. The submarine underwater sounds more like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. That boom, boom, And the Japanese one's just a little bink, bink.
The sonar. Sonar.
And this is Christopher Young music. I mean, listen to it. It sounds so much like.
Yeah, I was getting vibes from Hellbound when I was listening to this section here.
Yeah. And 2 years before, or 3 years before Hellbound.
And I think that what they're really doing, is making this into a horror movie. They're scaring the audience. If you saw this in the theater and you'd never seen a Godzilla movie before, and you were like an 8 or a 10-year-old, this would be frightening. Seeing a giant monster that can kill a submarine, and I know kids and young people that saw these early films like this, and they were frightened of Godzilla.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the Godzilla monster in this movie could have been a little better. I mean, when they do close-ups on it, like his eyes are looking in different directions, and it looks a little too. The features are too soft and too cartoony.
Well, and over the course of the Heisei series, they improved him a lot, and they made his eyes smaller so they didn't look like cartoony like that, and less front facing.
Yeah.
Because I have a documentary on the making of the film, and I think that one of the problems this film had, at the time, with the technology was, how the American King Kong, the one that Dino De Laurentiis produced, where he claimed that this giant robot that he built, had all this money put into this giant, a real mechanical big King Kong, right? And it never got used. It wasn't really capable of doing all these things. I mean, they made a hand that could grip a woman, but they didn't make a fully articulated giant King Kong.
There's the Dr. Pepper machine.
Yeah, there's a machine at the end of the hallway, right between the two characters speaking.
In the Pentagon, they have a Dr. Pepper machine right there.
Of course, yeah.
Of course. But then this Godzilla that they made for 1985, they made a robotic one. They sculpted a 14-foot tall clay sculpture and made molds and cast it in latex and everything. But they put, pistons and, solenoids and, actuators and hydraulics and stuff to make it move, like a Jurassic Park kind of dinosaur, mechanical. An animatronic, basically, robot, but it just didn't have the sophistication back then that we do today. Like Jurassic Park was still 5 years or so away at the time of 1985. And by the time they got to Jurassic Park, they had really gotten some beautiful articulation of mechanical creatures. But unfortunately, this Godzilla, they were trying to, if you look at the face, you can see they were trying to make it have eyebrow movement and facial structure movement so it could have expressions and stuff. And it just, unfortunately just wasn't up to par yet.
And Japanese movies have never had the same budget as American. I mean, like, even when you look at the CGI in Japanese movies, it's always about 10 years behind what we're doing in the U.S.
Right. But, I mean, at the time, as far as I recall, and from what I've read and stuff, the budget for this one was around $6 or $7 million, and it made that much back immediately. It did well. I mean, for Japan, that was a pretty decent budget.
Yeah.
So that general over there, I think his name was Goodhue. He was played by Warren J. Kemmerling, who I think is one of the best actors in the entire American segments.
I agree. He's great.
he's such an awesome guy, and he was in a lot of good stuff. He was in, he was in Gunsmoke. He was in Bonanza. He was in.
Here's Ator talking.
Oh, yeah, he was in the A-Team. He was in a bunch of stuff. He's a really good actor.
He chews the scenery. He's a great character actor.
Yeah.
It's like you need somebody like that for a movie like this. It brightens it up. It makes it come alive. If you have all these boring performances, it'll fall asleep.
Yeah.
That's why I like some character actors. They really know how to chew the scenery.
Now, the big press conference where they finally tell the story that Godzilla is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in this film, I've heard, that the size of Godzilla is supposed to be a little under 300 feet tall.
I think here they mentioned something that he's 80 yards,
80 meters.
80 meters or something like that, which translates to just under 300, like 289 or something.
Oh my God, that sonar picture looks like a grimace.
You mean from McDonald's Land, grimace?
Oh, and the soldier was looking at the picture upside down, and the other colonel just comes over, picks it up from his hand, and flips it upside down.
Turns it around.
Yeah.
You idiot.
Yeah.
He's the plucky comic relief.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up that General Goodhue here still has his gym towel around his shoulders
the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about other Godzilla films too. While we have any boring parts, because there's such a rich history of Godzilla. I mean, Ryan, aren't you a big Godzilla fan? I know you collect the figures.
Yeah. Well, and when I lived in Japan, I was there. When I was there, it was we had an earthquake in Kobe, the Hanshin Daishinsai. 6 million people died, and everybody that I talked to, including me, that woke up had a dream about Godzilla from that earthquake.
Wow, trippy.
And so that's kind of what got me into Godzilla. I wanted to learn more, so I started renting the movies and copying them.
6 million died from that earthquake?
6,000.
6,000, okay. Yeah. That's a lot.
There's a lot of people I knew.
No kidding, wow.
Yeah.
And when they had the tsunamis, that was terrible too in Japan.
Yeah, and some of the later Godzilla films from the Millennium era have some of it, the writers and stuff claim that they were inspired because of the Fukushima disaster as well, the nuclear.
Oh yeah, in the newer one, Shin Gojira is all about that and how the Japanese government responds to an emergency.
Right, how they were unprepared.
Yes, all the bureaucracy and all this stuff that basically it's nothing but guys talking inside offices, and then they have little bits here and there of Godzilla destroying the city.
No, I thought the Godzilla parts were pretty good. Well, I love, that's my favorite Godzilla movie out of all of them.
Shin Godzilla?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all CGI, right? No suitmation.
Right, yeah, that's true.
I like that in that movie, Godzilla had different stages when he comes out of the water.
It's so weird. And that is the one exception where they don't acknowledge the first movie at all. It's like all just a thing to itself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so Shin Godzilla is the first and only Godzilla in that one?
Yeah. I mean, it was sort of set up for a sequel, because there are these weird, like, humanoid skeletons coming out of the end of his tail that we're going to...
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about that. Like, it's like a Giger thing or something.
They were
going
to come loose and they were going to be the last stage, right? And they were going to come loose and terrorize the city, but I guess Toho probably didn't want to go for that. That's not really Godzilla anymore.
I've heard of so many crazy story ideas over the years for things that they decided not to do, or that they partly did, or, a couple of monsters that they were going to put in, but they decided not to, and then they turn up in the next movie or a movie 3 movies down the line,
So the Russians just turned on the nuclear weapons or whatever to keep the option open. So it'll be
the nuclear weapons platform that's up in outer space.
It's on a satellite, so kind of a reference to Star Wars program, right?
Yeah. So it'll be important later.
Yeah. Now, I mean, are we taking for granted that in 1985 we had nuclear weapons orbiting above the Earth?
Yeah. Well, and there's also laser cannons that they fire out of tanks too.
Yeah.
Right. So, wow.
Lasers.
Yeah.
Where's the flying cars?
Yeah.
Where's the Jewish laser starting fires?
Oh God.
Yeah. Sharks with lasers.
Yeah. Dolphins. But anyway, so they're all deploying stuff, and they're getting ready for. They never learn, do they? Like the military never learns. Yeah, they never learned that it's not going to do a thing to Godzilla. It's never going to do a thing. Only movie
in this case, it was 30 years ago, right? So all those people are gone. Almost.
They forgot. Yeah, everybody forgot.
And they figured, we have better weapons now than they did in 1955.
Yeah, our bullets are stronger bullets than the old bullets.
Yeah,
they're made of lead plus.
Yeah.
But that's what's so crazy is that, Raymond Burr is sitting right there at the Pentagon with the general, and he's telling them nothing works. It didn't work last time. It won't work this time. Bombs, guns, planes, jets, nothing works. Flames, fire, nothing.
Well, all those people in the Pentagon are just really kind of watching the movie like we are. They're not participating hardly.
And I believe they said at one point that, like, the fastest we could get, like, Delta Team there, or a missile, or one of our subs, or one of our, battleships or whatever, would be, like, I think one of them said was 14 hours, and another one was, and it was like, that's all too late. He'll be in Tokyo by then,
Oh, here's the part where Godzilla comes out of the sea and he goes to eat like a nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's going to charge his up. He needs his radiation and his, his radiation breath to be recharged.
This part is almost unwittingly funny because this guy comes out of the nuclear station. He sees the floor crack in front of him, and then he turns over a corner, and there's Godzilla standing there right in front of him.
Yeah.
It could be frightening or it could be comical.
and all he says is just, oh, Godzilla, oh, Godzilla.
Yeah, I remember him from, 40, 50 years ago?
I think it was you, Ryan, that told me that in the American movies, you always hear them like yell, Godzilla, it's Godzilla, run for your lives. And then in the Japanese version, it's just, oh, Gojira.
Yeah.
Oh. It's like,
they're
much
a little
more
bit
subdued.
more Vulcan. They're more controlled with their emotions.
Yeah. And all Brown Eyes is back. They just showed a close-up of his goofy little ping-pong ball eyes.
But I love his lip curl.
He's got that mechanical face.
Yeah.
Little snarl. Oh, he's starting to stomp on things.
But
now he's going to bring the high-tension wires down.
I always feel bad about the guy who has to do all these like extremely detailed miniatures, and then some guy in a rubber suit is just going to stomp all over it.
Yeah.
But I imagine him crying in a corner of the set.
They do it in they record it. They slow down the film when he's stomping on all this stuff because it looks
they shoot what they call it's high speed photography, which causes it to be slow motion.
Yeah.
Oh, rail kill, guys falling over rails.
Stuntman, call the stunt union.
Put the Wilhelm scream in it.
Yeah.
Yep. But I was about to say that I am a fan of Godzilla. I love Godzilla. I grew up on Godzilla. I love dinosaurs in every aspect. And one of the things about, studying these films ever since I was a kid, literally a kid, 12, 13, I love suitmation. I love Godzilla suit being built with foam and latex and everything. And even though they're rubber suits that a lot of people criticize and say they're floppy and they look like two guys doing big time wrestling and stuff, I still love it. I love the miniatures. I love the miniature buildings. I love the spaceships, the Mysterians, the Mecha Godzilla. I love all that stuff, the technical quality, the art, the skill, the craftsmanship, the hundreds of hours that goes into that,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, this is funny because he's just
a can of energy.
He's sticking his hand into the giant cooling tower and he's pulling out the nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
Ooh, they made me soup.
Yeah. I'm hungry.
And there's going to be a really important moment here where some birds are going to fly over. There's a reactor. And he's going to drink a giant can of Dr. Pepper afterwards.
Right. They would have loved that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I've always wanted to make a monster suit.
Are lighting up.
To make a costume.
And I would like to build him a miniature town to crush.
Yeah. Full of little action figures.
And when you're inside a costume like that, you pretty much are blind. So other than having your helpers and your people to guide you around and stuff like that, I could still do it. I could put on a mask where I don't need to see, and all I need to do is be able to breathe and communicate that hey, get me out of here, or whatever. But I could still wear stuff. I'm gonna try and do that. I'm gonna I have an alien, I have a predator, I have many cosplay suits.
There's a kid playing with Zoids.
Yeah, that's the name.
Yeah,
that's the name.
They're mechanical too.
I remember seeing the Zoids on TV. I was wondering when I was a kid. I was kind of getting to be a teenager, and I was like, I want one of those things, but they were super expensive.
Yeah, I never had them either, but I thought they were cool.
My buddy collected those. Matt, my buddy, he had a ton of them. He made it his business to get them. They're hard to get. They're from Japan, I think, too.
So this is the part where the uniformed guy with the dark sunglasses goes to get our American hero. We need you in Washington.
Yeah, I was expecting that.
Yeah. He's from the first scene that we see him when the Yahatumaru is being destroyed, and then they focus to his eyes. It's like he's having an ominous feeling, right? It's like he's somehow connected to what's going on, even though there's no reason for him to actually know what's going on.
Yeah,
there's a great disturbance in the force.
Yeah, they make him out to be like this kind of Godzilla force kind of dude, and all he did was he was a reporter covering the first time that Godzilla went into Tokyo.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a real connection there. But
like in other films where there's an actual psychic girl who communicates with Godzilla.
In this series, yeah.
They even give him not a jade, but a marble statuette of a dragon that he keeps in a little velvet red towel all the time.
And they focus on it like it's important, but never really explain it.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess he just did the research. He got into the research.
And Ed, you found that video of all the differences between 84 and 85 Godzilla,
Right.
And that same guy also did a video about Godzilla 1985 being a parody.
Right. Well, the rumor that it was supposedly.
Yeah, it's interesting, but that guy kind of drove me crazy because he kept saying nuclear.
Your pet peeve.
Yeah.
And here's one of the things that Tony Randel said about this. They called it Godzilla 1985 because at the time he had seen Frankenstein 1970, and he thought, why not? Just make it like a homage to Frankenstein 1970. That's where the title came from. And
Frankenstein 1970 was directed by Roger Corman. That was a film put out by their company.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, good connection there. Yeah. So he said here that they hired, when they were working on this for New World Pictures, there was Straw Wiseman, Lisa Tomei, some of the people who were hired to work
involved on building.
And then they also got Bob Kizer to direct these scenes for the American version. Yeah, which took about 3 days. And like we said at the beginning, basically Raymond Burr just came in for 1 day. And I thought that his lines were kind of flat, and then I was reading this, and I was like, Raymond Burr also requested a teleprompter so he could read his lines on set. Yeah. So he didn't even bother to learn his lines. It's just, you can see when he looks like he's contemplative, looking in the distance, saying, Godzilla, we need to find out what he wants. He's just looking at the teleprompter at the end of the set, off camera.
And he can't have more than like 10 lines. I can't believe he didn't bother to memorize them.
Yeah.
Well, he was pretty old at the time. I'll give him credit that he is well known for having been, a defender of Godzilla. He really liked the original Godzilla. He liked his participation in it. He did that in one day as well. There's a little interview on YouTube that we found, and we'll put that, send that to you guys if you want to put that in the show notes, where he's talking about that he shot it with the crew, all in one day here in LA, and they shot it in this little tiny studio, like one of the tiniest studios in Los Angeles. Oh. And then he said that, I guess, on the sequel, the 1985, that, they asked him to be in it. And he said that if they took it seriously and that, his part, was like he wants Godzilla to be feared and considered, the threat of nuclear war, it was an important subject, and that he wanted, that speech that he reads at the end of the film, that he's got the last lines in this American version, and it's a very, solid speech about, the folly of man and the nuclear destruction, capability and stuff. And he wrote that speech. He wrote it himself. So even though he had to read it off a teleprompter, maybe his eyes, maybe he was getting old or something because he's white haired and, I'm trying to give him a break.
Not getting any younger.
Yeah.
Well, I still don't.
I appreciate his respect for the property. He even said in an interview that he liked Godzilla so much that he would want to buy the rights to own the rights for the American. Make a sequel or make an American version.
So we just missed a little part here where Dr. Hayashida was explaining what he's trying to do. He's trying to get
Ator's voice again.
Yes. He's trying to use the fact that Godzilla's brain, being kind of like a dinosaur, it's almost it tunes to like the bird brains for some reason. So
because dinosaurs are related to birds, I think.
Right. Right. And so they try to get some sort of frequencies that would attract him to a volcano, and they want to throw him into a volcano and blow some bombs into it and bury him in there.
That's one way to get rid of a Godzilla.
Convoluted plan, but let's see how it works out.
Into the scene with all the generals.
It's funny that it's funny the general requested him. He's like, "Who the hell are you? Who let you in here?"
Oh, I'm the guy you requested.
Yeah.
Oh.
Doesn't he say something like that? Doesn't he say, "Yeah, call for me"?
Yeah. Exactly what he says.
Yeah.
He makes the general feel a fool.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. I meant to ask about the toy that his grandson was playing with. Yeah, was that a commercially available toy?
Yeah.
Was that a Godzilla? Did you recognize that?
That was the Zoid.
Oh, okay, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Nina thought that was a Mechagodzilla, and I'm going, was it silver?
No.
And she's like, no, it's got some colors on it. And I go, well, if it's not silver, it's not Mechagodzilla.
I think it's definitely inspired by Mechagodzilla, but it's just a Zoid. Yeah.
Yeah. Now they're watching the original movie and the movie.
Yeah. Well, kind of. I think it's a recreation of the original movie. That's not the Godzilla suit from the...
Oh, it's not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that doesn't exist in 1985. The Godzilla suit from 1954 would have been rotted long ago.
Yeah. And plus it looks way different, so they didn't want to accentuate that.
When you see mine, when I show you my unpainted, raw latex casting of the head that I have here at my house, it's the 54 one. It's got ears and stuff.
That's cool.
Actually, that's another one of the things about this particular Godzilla design. It also has ears.
Oh, dead air.
Uh-oh.
She changes her outfits a lot, this girl, but her previous scene's outfit, I had that skirt. I wore that skirt for like 10 years. I wore it till people, it was out of fashion, but it was so comfortable.
You would imagine that they would have been tracking something so huge, but apparently they just found him out at the Tokyo Bay, just as he comes out to start stomping the city.
Right. You know what's crazy too is that like the original Godzilla, which was directed by Mr. Honda, and had the music of Akira Ikefube.
Yeah.
When I was in Japan in 1985, there was a concert with a full orchestra of Mr. Ikefube, performing, and I couldn't get tickets. I almost went.
Man.
Yeah, what an opportunity! He's passed away now, of course, too.
I wanted to go see Space Godzilla in the theater. But then the earthquake happened, and I would have had to. I just couldn't get. I couldn't get in. With the trains were all broken, and I just couldn't get there to watch it.
Evacuation montage going on right now.
Yeah.
Kada, run!
Yeah, this music is way different from what's in the Japanese version.
And do you prefer the Japanese music?
That's different.
Ryan,
yeah.
Do you prefer the Japanese?
Yeah. I mean, I like watching the Japanese version of the movie in general better than
the American version.
Yeah.
So the Tony Randel interview, they go on to talk a little bit about that Leslie Nielsen rumor, and he puts it to rest. And then they also talk about something interesting. They said, going back to what you said a little bit earlier, I take it that Raymond Burr was always in the back of your mind as being part of the Americanization. You never really wanted to look anywhere else but Raymond Burr? And he says, never. No, never. When the idea was first brought up and the whole Lorne Greene thing came up, because apparently there was an executive who suggested bringing in Lorne Greene to narrate parts of the movie. And he said, well, Raymond Burr. I mean, that was it. I mean, it's possible. Yeah. It was a long time ago, but I just don't remember going through any other processes other than perhaps joking about it, but I don't recall it ever being a serious thought. I thought it was always going to be Raymond Burr. And I said, when you approached him,
from Battlestar Galactica, maybe.
Yes, it was Captain Commander Adama.
Well, and it says because Lorne Greene had done some other movie in a similar vein where he had,
He said, when you approached Raymond Burr, what did he think about the film? Did he have any special demands? What was that whole process like? And Tony Randel says, one of the executives at New World negotiated the deal, an executive named Jeff Steckman. Burr did some changing on the script when he came in. He's just shortened it. Some of the dialogue, he just shortened it up a bit, and there were a few things I think he wanted to say that he put in there. That was the only demand. So he was very, very cooperative, extremely nice and professional. He only worked for one day. I think he was kind of amused to come back after all these years, almost 30 years later, and do the same role. I think it kind of tickled him in some way. So,
I think so, yeah. And I really like what he wrote. That last bit at the end, kind of puts a period, puts a dot on that I, crosses that T, of making this film a serious film that's supposed to be, kind of a mirror to the 1954 one. But, in defense of you guys' decision, to not do the 1954 one today instead of doing the 1985 one, I agree that it's many things like the 1954, but we get color, and you get the connection with Hellraiser and stuff like that. So I think this was a good choice,
Well, and there's a big Raymond Burr's speech at the end also he just kind of reworded the Blue Oyster Cult song, right? History shows again and again how nature points out the folly of man.
Go
I don't know
Godzilla.
exactly what Raymond Bird's. I don't know what his lyrics. I mean, what Raymond Bird's lines are exactly, but that's funny. I mean, I don't know when the Blue Oyster Cult song came out either. It'd be interesting to compare.
Oh, it's got to have been before this. It's like 70 something, right?
Go
I don't know.
Godzilla.
I don't know.
Another connection is that you guys know that war room that they keep showing the American generals and colonels in?
The Pentagon? Yeah, the Pentagon.
Yeah. Well, so Tony Randel says, well, New World had just released a film called The Philadelphia Experiment. And in the Philadelphia Experiment, there was a mission control set. So there are people running around on computers, and there was big blue screens. So what I did is I took that footage and just built the 3 walls behind it for our set. So whenever they cut to this war room, it's actually from the Philadelphia Experiment.
Wow.
That was just composited maps of Japan or some scenes from the original Godzilla film. And he says, I think Ernie Farino did all that optical compositing stuff, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that's interesting. I know who Ernie Farino is. He used to be in Cinemagic Magazine. He'd write articles.
They shot at Raleigh, North Carolina for 2 days, and then up at a house in Malibu for 1 day or half a day for the scene with Raymond Burr in his office. And I think that was it.
And the grandson playing with the Zoid on the floor.
Yeah. Yep. And another connection to Hellraiser, in this case 3, is that New World had these executives called Sloan and Kuppen. Yeah. And they are the guys who are trying
Kuppen.
to... Yeah. He's the guy who produced Hellraiser 3. He was
the
bum.
Inquisition.
Yeah. and in the interview, they asked him if they had made it so the Russians launched the nuclear weapon because Kuppen was a conservative, and Tony Randall said, no, that's not why. He said, that was my decision. I just thought it would be fun to change it that way.
Yeah.
With the flip of a switch, we're now, showing Rush and the bad guys.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, look at that.
Yeah, all they did was change what the subtitles said over the Russian.
What's funny, too, is in Japan, apparently, they wanted it to be like America and Russia were equally bad if they, not that Russia's worse than America some way.
Yeah, they're pushing Japan around.
Yeah.
Both of them, yeah. But I was mentioning earlier about, the Super X.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the plane.
That vehicle, that weapon, becomes like a fixture in the next series of films, like from here on.
It's a backpack on the back of Mechagodzilla.
Right. And they have Super X X1 and Super X Super Duper X and all these versions.
Yeah, the Super X2. It goes all the way up to 3, I think.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is who built that thing? It's like, is it nuclear powered and it can fly, it hovers, it's got missiles, it's got lasers.
Right.
It's like the 1985 version of the Mazor cannons from the 70s.
Well, and in Mechagodzilla, he's made out of like diamond.
Yeah.
Yeah, his body has a super dense diamond coating.
It's funny, I was watching that with a friend in Japan, and he said, why do they only make one Mechagodzilla and then it loses? They could just... What if they made 12 Mechagodzillas?
Yeah, right.
I can't argue against that. That's actually a good point.
But where's the budget for that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
the Russians going to launch the missile.
And are these diamond-coated things, like when they blow up, is it like artificial diamonds, or are the people running out in the street scooping up diamonds after the explosion of
the way I've always seen it is that it's just another one of the Godzilla movie tropes. There always has to be some sort of super weapon that they're going to unveil to fight Godzilla, whether it's going to be another giant mechanic Godzilla, or it's going to be a fancy plane, or it's going to be like the oxygen destroyer, or it's going to be whatever.
Godzilla had Mechagodzilla had the absolute zero cannon.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about these movies. They're so creative. They're so, they have such diversity of monster designs and monsters and mecha stuff, and weaponry too. Like, I've always loved the Mazar cannons. They came out with a model you could buy in Japan, of a Mazar cannon.
Those things have been a fixture since the 60s. Those Mazar,
right. Yeah. And they keep coming up with more designs of them, like a bigger dish or, a more articulated, arm on it or whatever,
Yeah. That part of it is kind of what makes these a little bit fantasy.
But I love it. I love it.
I do too.
Just crashing down the street.
Honya, my friend from in Japan, he would sing, "We all live in a mecha Gojira."
I love it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, when I was in Japan, everybody would say, "Oh, King Goji, King Goji." Oh, and they would talk about King, King Ghidorah, King Ghidorah.
King Ghidorah.
I think they really improved the Godzilla design. I was looking at other Godzilla suits, and the Godzilla versus Violante is much better looking.
Oh
Godzilla.
yeah.
I love Violante too. Violante's cool.
I have the toy of him. He was very expensive to get.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's the average price? You got a lot of those at Toys R Us back in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Were they like $20 each or 30 or
no? Well, at Toys R Us, I can't. Yeah, maybe they were like $20. I mean, it was in. You take the
is
yen.
It 95 or 94 or
you take the yen and put a decimal point before the last two zeros. It was like
300 yen.
500 yen was equal to $5.
Right.
Look, there's always like a train sequence. There's always like Godzilla's in the town. The town's been evacuated.
Knocking a train off the tracks or something.
Yeah, but there's always like a train of people going somewhere. And it's like, why are they in the train?
Kong, like the King Kong train.
Why is the train working?
They even did that in the American 2014 remake.
They did, yeah. When the Marine guy is on the train with the kid, and my God.
Yeah, it's like these are all the really late, slow people from the evacuation, I guess.
And
yeah, I was always wondering that, like if Godzilla is coming to your town, aren't you like first out of town?
Yeah. Oh, here's where he said the thing about the urban renewal program.
Yeah, and remember, it gives him a dirty look and kind of half nod.
Yeah.
People are dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what's bizarre too is like when you look at some of the Godzilla movies where radiation is a factor, and you see either Godzilla's radiation breath or somebody like the smog monster or something like leaving its slime and pollution behind, and people are all dying from poison and radiation, and their skin's blistering and stuff. Yeah. And then later you see like I think even in the first movie you'd see like a hospital scene where everybody's like all dead and burned and gross.
A mother is crying, hugging their dead children. And there's a choir of little girls like singing and stuff. It's a very emotional, very, very straight movie.
They sort of went away from that. I mean, you
think
to have Minya blowing smoke rings,
children and flying Godzilla who can turn his tail up and fly.
But that was really a horror about the horror of nuclear weapons. I mean,
absolutely,
yeah.
But then you have movies where Godzilla is talking to another monster and they're swimming together. It's like, it's so weird.
And it's their voices were record scratches.
Yeah. It's like, come on, Godzilla, we got to swim there and stop the King Ghidorah. It's like,
right.
And then the stuff when they started making Godzilla do a little jump and a little choreography whenever he beat like a monster.
Well, there's a director, Fukuda Jun. He did all those ones that were like children's movies.
Yeah.
Right. They made a ton of money. I mean, that's why they did it.
Sure, yeah, they still do.
But Honda came back and did the last couple of the Mechagodzilla ones, and they got way more violent.
Oh yeah. I love Mr. Honda. Honda-san. He's a genius.
Yeah.
Here's the comedy relief dude that I just think it's so out of place in this movie.
Oh, the bum.
This is that guy you were saying it might be a comedian.
Oh yeah, the guy who's like a drunk and he stays behind and he eats all.
Is this a reference to some other guy or some other movie?
I haven't done the research to find out, but I believe this actor when I was in Japan and they were playing like the TV shows on the making of this movie, they focused on this man a lot, and I think it was because as an actor, he's known in either he's a comedian or he's a famous actor that's well known in Japan, like as a variety entertainer, like can sing and dance, and has been in many other TV shows and things like that. Because they kind of focus on him a bit, and I just thought there's got to be a reason,
I just love the dialogue that he says, like, "Hey, you just got into town. You need some manners."
Right. Like his American lines,
are way different. Yeah.
Well,
what do you think his Japanese lines are, Ryan?
I don't remember. It's been a while. There was also in Violante, they had a news report with Demon Kogure from Seikimatsu, who dresses like he's a demon. And
explain what those.
So Seikimatsu is a heavy metal band in Japan, and they dress like demons. They're sort of in between like Kiss and Gwar.
Right, okay.
And their whole thing is that they're 10,000-year-old demons, and they're going to break up in the year 1999. So their name sort of means the end of the century. So anyway, he's a big Godzilla fan, and he actually won a contest one time to do the Godzilla roar. So he can do the Godzilla roar into the music.
Wow. That's a great trivia. That's a little anecdote that's awesome. I love stuff like that. Throughout the Godzilla films, there's lots of actors that do cameos all over the place.
In Violante, he was a cameo. He was like a news anchor, which didn't make any sense at all, but to the people of Japan, it's like, oh, there's Demon Kogure.
Right. Somebody recognizable,
Yeah, but in the American dub of it, he's like yelling about, oh, it's the end of the world and stuff, because they're trying to make sense out of him.
So here we see the laser being fired at Godzilla, and Hayashida is trying to get to the top of the building with his oscilloscope thing. He's trying to use that bird frequency thing to control Godzilla and make him go to the volcano.
And now that's the MacGuffin of this movie. Like the fact that there's like a black box that they can hang from an helicopter, and it will lure Godzilla away.
Yep.
They did something similar in was it King of the Monsters, right? The
American one?
The new American one. They had a box that made some kind of animal sounds that they could use to attract the monsters.
Not just Godzilla, but the other monsters too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
and they could do like an alpha frequency or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder that too.
Each other's lines.
Yeah, I wonder that too. Now, if they were inspired by this movie, because I never really thought about it.
Here's the X1, the Super X, or whatever they call it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I'm saying to myself, where in the heck did they get this thing? Who built it? Who authorized it? Does the United States know that the Japanese government owns this? Atomic-powered missile launching.
I think you're overanalyzing it.
As long as it's for self-defense, it's fine.
Yes. Yeah. Right. It's not
lasers.
It's not a nuclear weapon.
Oh God. Oh.
I think it is nuclear powered.
Oh, this scene of Godzilla just roaring seen from below while the lasers are beaming and there's two buildings in the back. What a great shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the fact that the buildings, the skyscrapers, are bigger than Godzilla. The models that they built, they always build ginormous sets, where the actors in the suits can stomp around on. But I think this was one of the first times where it was like modern skyscrapers with lights in the windows and like all that detail.
Every movie he gets a little bigger, so there comes a point where he's taller than every building.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but not in this one.
Yeah.
And
there was a crazy looking poster for that Godzilla American movie where they had people jumping off, doing a halo jump, like a high altitude, jump. And
in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, and you see Godzilla is like, you see his torso and it's taller than the Golden Gate Bridge and he's like piercing the clouds. And I'm like, what the hell, dude? That's like, this
and that
poster makes no sense.
Standing in the water. He's deeper than just the top of the bridge. He's in the water as well.
So there is a Gojipedia And there is an article for the X1. So this might help you with your questions
Super
here.
X? You mean the Super X?
The Super X, yes. It says the Super X was originally built as an anti-nuclear warcraft that was intended to defend Japan from an American or Russian attack. However, it is first used against Godzilla when he attacks Tokyo in conjunction with the hyper laser cannons. There you go.
The modern masers.
And not just that, but it says what it has. It has cadmium missiles.
Wow.
Yeah, nuclear.
So they're like anti-nuclear, right? They
Yeah, it flies at Mach 1.
If we had a nuclear war, this is what Japan would use to defend itself.
Wait,
right.
it flies at Mach 1? We never see it go faster than like walking speed.
I know. It's just like floating there.
It hovers like about 5 feet off the ground most of the time.
This is what it says in the article. Flight at Mach 1, equipped with cadmium missiles, laser cannons, equipped with a wide variety of other missiles, heat-resistant layer. I guess then they make it like a diamond in the other movies.
The diamond coating. Yeah.
And is able to launch flares, which seems like totally relevant against Godzilla.
I want to know what a cadmium missile is. What does that do?
And it has hazard lights.
It started a nuclear reaction inside Godzilla because they shoot it into his mouth, and it halts the nuclear reactions to the point that Godzilla nearly dies. So I don't. I guess that's what it says here. I don't know. I mean, there's also a manga adaptation of the Return of Godzilla. And they
that would have some information, I bet.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you have that, Ryan? The manga adaptation of this?
Okay.
I wonder if this one, if this Super X in this movie is supposed to fly up to his head, and fire the missile down his throat. It's like I don't remember any part where you get the missile down his throat.
Well, they
just did it
at his head. Yeah.
Oh.
The Super X also makes a first actual appearance in an IDW publishing Godzilla comic in the final issue of Godzilla Rulers of Earth.
Oh.
Apparently so this Rulers of Earth, that's like a couple of years ago or something. 2015, I guess. That's when it came out.
I have a little Super X, a Kyoto, the Japanese model company that made resin garage kits and vinyl kits and stuff, made a Super X that was small. I had it, I still have it. It's like, it fits in the palm of your hand. It's that small.
Wow.
The copy that I have.
I'm looking at a concept art, Super X Main Sky Battle Tank. And it has like a cut of
blueprint, like blueprints.
It's more like a vertical cut of the inside of it. And it has all these people and all these like things and the weapons.
Layers and rooms and engine rooms and missiles and all kinds. I love stuff like that. That's one of the cool things about Japanese books and manga and stuff, collectible books. They always have like fold outs and little cards you can pull out and like put for your CD case, artwork and stuff. Like, I think it's so cool. I own a bunch of that sort of magazines and books and stuff. And one of the ones about the Super X, or the Godzillas, is sometimes they'll do like a cutaway like you're talking about, and they'll show like the biological interior of a monster, like what his organs and his bones and everything look like.
So Godzilla is now fallen unconscious against a building because the cadmium missiles prevented his nuclear reaction from happening, which is what they use in nuclear reactors, the cadmium rods. They insert into the core of the nuclear reactor, and it absorbs the neutrons and prevents the reaction from taking place.
I see.
So that's what they did.
I always wondered, what the heck does cadmium have to do with anything?
They should have called up Raymond Burr and said, see, I told you that would work.
Yeah. Yep.
I love the fact though that the Super X is on one side of a building and Godzilla is on the other side of the building, and eventually he gets up and fires his laser mouth beams through the building to crack the Super X.
In the background, we see Raymond Burr. He seems to be getting further disheveled as the movie goes on. Like he comes in with a tie, and all of a sudden he doesn't have a tie anymore, and he starts on doing buttons on his shirt.
It's like Airplane with Lloyd Bridges. It's a bad day to stop sniffing glue.
Annie M, it's a twister. Annie M, it's a twister.
Yeah. There's a sale at Penny's.
Okay, the Americans just launched.
The Americans launched, or was it the Russians?
The Russians launched and the Americans launched a counter missile, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, we've never.
Right.
This is before the Gulf War, so they're like, we've never tried to shoot down a missile with a missile before."
They're tag teaming Japan.
Yeah.
What I want to know is what would have happened if that nuke had landed. Japan would be gone, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
don't have these little nukes anymore. Now
Yeah.
they have nukes that'll take out the whole island.
Yeah.
This guy is not good with power tools at all. He's trying
Yeah.
to drill through a key, a lock, and he just managed to wound himself grievously in his arm.
I know. Yeah, yeah. Like the
I
drill
was
bit
thinking-
came off and cut his arm, flew over and hit his arm or something.
Damn it, Jim! I'm a photographer, not a locksmith.
This is so MST3Kable, don't you
It
think?
is.
I know. Yeah.
And you know what, though? I was thinking this building is crooked. That door frame is now tweaked. It's like, even if you knock that doorknob off, that door is not going to budge.
Yeah.
You
Oh, that's a
know?
good point. Yeah.
And
Here
so I was
comes
thinking
the,
it might be drywall right next to the door. Use the drill on the wall. Put a
Yeah.
hole in the wall and crawl through the hole.
Oh, this scene totally reminds me of the Matrix when they're rescuing Morpheus.
Oh, yeah.
So the helicopter comes over. They're stuck in the top of the building, and they're going to break the window with a special kind of like missile to implode the window. And then it's like they're going to have to jump into the helicopter.
So don't mind the blades that they chop you up, and
Yeah.
don't mind the missile if it blows you to hell when it comes through your window.
Yeah. Well, the missile, which is weird, attaches itself to the glass instead of breaking through it, and then it implodes the glass. It's like it feels like you could have just shot the glass,
Yeah.
and it would have broken into a million pieces.
Yeah,
you don't need to
or they
shoot
could have
something into it.
They could have told them to break the window.
From the inside, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Use
there's
the
a
drill.
desk in there. Push that desk in that filing cabinet through the glass, okay?
And that fancy missile they used didn't do a good job because half of the glass was still there.
Yeah. But it's like the Towering Inferno or something where you have to rescue the people from a helicopter. You know?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Godzilla is stomping, Tokyo.
I
Still
forget.
passed out.
I
having a
forget
nap.
why did they drop this guy off? It's like you shouldn't want to be in the building.
Yeah.
Also, where did they get the drill?
Yeah.
Right?
It's in
right.
somebody's desk.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a Dremel. It's in somebody's desk. you
Yeah.
know?
Sure.
The drawer of requirement.
That
Yes.
that model builder guy who sits on the corner, that cubicle on the far left side, he's a model builder.
Yeah.
Ryan, I was looking at D&D stuff the other day because of our D&D series that we're doing, the feature, and I was like, the bag of holding seems like such a contrived thing.
It is. It comes from Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
Right.
A portable hole.
No, the
You
portable
Yeah.
hole is
on the ground
different from
and
the
jump
bag of
through it.
holding. Those are two separate things.
Right. You
Yeah.
could just
Bugs
jump
Bunny
into
has
the...
his magic pocket.
Right.
He can pull an anvil out of his pocket.
It's because
He's got it.
it's because there's a weight requirement, right? You can only based on your strength, you can only hold so much stuff.
Wow, you're being a DM.
Yeah.
So,
Look,
and
I
also-
don't have a ceramic zebra, okay?
Yeah.
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 So in the King of
My
Monsters
ceramic
that Ryan...
zebra is here in my bag of portable holding, Ryan. We watched that, by
All
the way.
right.
Hold on, you spur-
Ceramic zebra?
It's from the
Yeah, you gotta
Kung
tell-
Fu Dragons
tell them.
movies.
Oh,
Ryan,
wow.
Ryan made
Yeah.
some amateur movies,
Yeah.
and they're on Hulu.
I
No, they're
know
on,
about them. I've
Yeah.
seen at least one chapter of it, and then somehow my brain refused to watch the rest. I'm sorry, Ryan.
Well, we've made some too, so we know your pain.
How many chapters did you make? Like 5 or 6?
7.
7.
Yeah.
Lucky 7.
Yeah.
It's a franchise.
Number 6
I know
is
somebody
the
named
best one,
Sujoy.
but yeah.
I know a guy named Sujoy too, and he runs the green screen cinema department
Involved in
at
film.
the local college here.
There you go. Yeah, he's involved in film.
That missile has been flying through space for hours now.
I know.
You see it going around the Earth and just still flying.
I love that.
Ah, the anxiety. So yeah, I got a copy of the script for the American version, which is interesting. There's some scratched up lines and stuff. Nothing that really is very
Bad
different from what they ends up in the movie. Like, but the X1 was called the SRX in the script, and then they call it Super X. They scratched it out and they wrote Super X wherever it shows up. So
Super X, yep.
Yeah.
It's like in RoboCop, they call the cars the SUX.
Right.
The 6000 SUX sucks.
Yeah.
I think that was a joke by Frank Miller.
So the missiles have been successful.
Oh, the
Yeah.
successful missiles.
But Raymond Burr still looks concerned.
Yes.
The first time I've heard about a missile hitting another missile was during the Gulf War when they
Yeah,
had
that's
the
what,
Patriot
that's what
missiles.
I was saying earlier. Yeah, the Patriot
that
missiles.
would hit the Scuds.
Versus the Scuds.
To this day, I don't know
Little arrow
if there was
pieces
ever a
there.
successful Patriot hitting down a Scud, or if that was just like some sort of contract defense thing that they sold to the American government.
No, I think they really did shoot down the Scuds. I mean, maybe not all the
Did they?
time, but yeah.
Okay, cool.
Technology.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ryan, about your Godzilla toy collection, I was going to ask you. Nina was. I'm blind, of course, so I can't see it. But Nina was describing them to me, and just from her description, I could tell you have a space Godzilla, huh?
Yeah, actually, that's the one. That's one of the ones I bought in Japan because that's when that movie was. That movie had just come out, so I have. And those are from the 8-inch scale.
Yeah, those
Space
are
Godzilla.
cool. Now, Space Godzilla, Joe, is the one that has these big protruding, like, icicles on his shoulders.
That glow, right?
Yeah, blue, kind of a blue glow.
Shows up as an asteroid first, and then we discover that it's
because
an actual Godzilla.
Because Violante's cells, which are Godzilla's cells, were sent out into space at the end of Violante. So,
and Violante is kind of a plant monster,
space
right?
Godzilla.
Yeah.
Watch out, or it'll grow a space Godzilla.
Yeah.
Don't let those cells go to space.
So the two missiles that hit each other ended up creating a nuclear storm, and the nuclear storm is going to be what wakes up Godzilla again because the lightning is going to hit the spikes on the back of his
spines.
body. Yeah.
Charge him up.
His three rows of spines. He always has to have 3 rows.
Yeah.
You know, in the King Kong versus Godzilla, King Kong gets revitalized by lightning, and that's because it's a holdover from the original idea was that it was going to be Frankenstein fighting Godzilla.
Yeah.
For some reason, Frankenstein was going to be hundreds of feet tall. Apparently.
This is based on the fact that Willis O'Brien was King Kong's creator, and he had some scripts for other giant monsters like Frankenstein. And Japanese people loved King Kong, and they loved Willis O'Brien. In fact, the original black and white Godzilla was going to be stop motion, but they just couldn't do it stop motion because it would have taken forever, would have taken a year or more, just to do the animation. So they had to go with, models. Like there are a couple of scenes, just short little tiny bits in the black and white original Godzilla that are done in stop motion.
Oh, here he's blowing a hole in the building.
Yeah. And so he can see the Super X behind it.
Yeah.
I love that. Those
they
models,
do that.
that's model work.
They have a fight.
Yeah, that's a great shot.
Practical effects group and suitmation. Even though they built this big 14-foot tall robot, it didn't really get used much. The men in suits really did 90% of the work for this film.
I mean, dude, that's a freaking plane. Why does the plane stay near the ground? Go up and shoot down at Godzilla. Right? Why does it have to be at eye level with Godzilla?
Yeah.
Just for a shot, so you can see Godzilla's eyes. They put all this money and time into building this big Godzilla head with these eyes.
Well, and they're also trying to lead him towards the volcano still.
Right.
Yeah. They're just annoying him.
Pied Piper effect, right?
Yeah.
Or like the poke you with a stick until you chase me effect.
Yeah.
Right. Put a carrot on a stick.
Heckin' carrot.
Heckin' carrot. And then, of course, Godzilla's tail has always been formidable, too. It's like, he might walk away, but he'll whack your building with his tail and knock it down.
Oh, yeah. On the Super Nintendo in Japan, there's a Godzilla fighting game that's like Street Fighter 2, but it's all Godzilla characters.
Mm-hmm.
I love that game, and Godzilla can really, really do some damage with his tail.
I've seen a review of that game.
You can play as Godzilla.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or any of the other ones. King Ghidorah, Mecha Godzilla.
That sounds amazing.
Good video games of Godzilla have come a long way. They used to be terrible.
Well, yeah, that one was good. The Sega Saturn and Dreamcast ones are not very good. And the Nintendo one that isn't very good.
Are you guys familiar with any of the Japanese anime versions of Godzilla at all? Or was it an American Godzilla now that's been on Netflix? There's 3 animated films on Netflix right now, I think.
Yeah. Those are Japanese. I saved them and I watched them, but I didn't like them that much.
Oh, here comes some tail wipeout right now. That's what we're talking about.
I haven't seen those. I think I might have.
Tail foo.
Yeah, tail foo. That's what Joe Bob would say.
Yeah,
I love that.
Tail foo, X1 foo, nuclear foo.
Yeah,
that's too much.
3 breasts.
Too much foo.
Not enough breasts.
That's
one of the things also about the your toy collection and stuff, Ryan. You know, the Space Godzilla, he can fire those rocks in his body out like missiles, right?
Yeah. Well, he grows crystals out of the ground, and then he can levitate them up and launch them at people.
At Godzilla, at the other Godzilla.
Yeah. Right.
Here we meet back up with that guy with the suitcase and the food.
Oh yeah, the comedian or whoever this actor is.
Okay, who remembers Godzuki?
Oh,
is that the cartoon?
Yeah, the cartoon. I grew up on that stuff.
He's got little wings. He's got little wings.
Yeah, that might have been the first time I've ever seen anything Godzilla related. Was that cartoon when I was a kid?
I loved that when I was a kid, but if you go back and watch it now, it's terrible.
Yeah, it was like these guys on a ship, and every time they got into trouble, they would turn the signal, and Godzilla would show up, and Godzuki.
And they really abused that signal. I mean, if you watch the cartoon now, it's like for stuff they probably could have handled themselves.
Yeah, like if Godzilla started destroying a city, I'd be like, "Yep, you guys pushed him too far."
Yeah.
I can see when they were coming down the fire hose, you know, he's trying to make sure not to kick her in the head.
Yeah, he jumped on the hose like immediately, and then he's like, "Oh crap!" His legs almost hit her in the face.
Oh, here's where Godzilla's going to push the building on top of their little vehicle. Take that!
Yeah.
And then Super X this,
and he looks very smug after this too. Yeah, that's.
Oh
yeah, they do a little close up on him, and he's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, he roars and looks at the camera, straight at the camera, like that's how I roll.
He says, "That's what you get."
Yeah. But they've got the sound plugged in, so soon he'll be hearing that.
It's like the last third of the Godzilla movies are always like hard to riff or talk about because it's nothing but like explosions and chaos and but basically they're still trying to get him to go to the volcano. Oh, here goes the loafer. That's the name of the guy in the script, the loafer.
The loafer. Yeah, it's funny. There's a bicycle right there, and instead of the bicycle, he takes a briefcase.
Yeah, he's not too bright.
And he runs.
Yeah.
What about your notes?
The American dubbing is terrible.
Yes.
He's clearly not saying back off. He's saying something else. But
yeah.
It's like, back off.
Yeah, I wrote down you're beginning to annoy me.
So that's one of the things that really irritates me about dubbing is that they'll spend more time trying to match up people's lips than they do like trying to make an accurate translation of the what
or to make an improvement to the story or something.
Yeah. The thing with Japanese is that they speak a lot faster than Americans do, and their words are shorter, so it's really hard to make it fit.
So they shouldn't even try. They should just make it the best possible movie.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that one. I have no problem with subtitles. I mean, it's just something that most Americans don't like to read subtitles. They don't like to have to look at the bottom of the screen. They think it kind of detracts. But when you grow up like that, it's like it's just a flick of the eye, gaze to the bottom of the screen and back up. It doesn't even take that long.
Well, and I think that sentiment has changed, right? Like, you can't even get this copy of the movie anymore, but you can buy the Japanese version with subtitles.
I think that might have more to do with the rights of New World. Like, in other words, Corman's films and Corman's company and the convolution of rights and things. It could be, Yeah. Because you're right. Your Blu-ray should have had this version on it.
Right, and the later ones in this Heisei series were owned by Sony Pictures, and they couldn't get and when Sony was putting them out, they couldn't get the rights to the Japanese audio, so they only made dubbed versions for a long time.
Right, and so that's what I mean, is like convolution in rights have messed up DVD and Blu-ray releases of many films for many years, regardless of what subject matter.
Hey, maybe it's time for Shout Factory to release like a deluxe edition of Godzilla Returns.
Right.
Or this could be like a bonus disc.
Well, it would have been nice.
Clamoring for that.
It would have been nice
cares.
if my Blu-ray had the American version on it. I assumed it had because it said it had English language on it on the back. But then when I looked closer,
it's subtitle form.
Yeah,
subtitle form.
No, they actually made a dubbed version of the Japanese movie.
Oh, that's useful.
Yeah. So I mean, I always just watch it with subtitles. I've never seen that version of it.
But it is on your disc?
Yeah.
Oh.
The Godzilla is swimming in the ocean, and there's a guy in the war room drinking a Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says, "I love that pruny taste."
They should have got the guy from American Werewolf in London, to come in. He's a pepper, she's a pepper, and I'd like to be a pepper too.
As someone who never actually drank Dr. Pepper, or maybe drank a couple of times, because it's more in America. It's not so much.
You know what it tastes like, though, right?
It's like a cherry Coke.
What is the flavor supposed to be though? Because it's a weird flavor. It's
it's really made with prunes.
Prunes.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Oh, now that you say that, I can taste.
I always thought
remember.
it was like cherry vanilla.
That's
They put
weird.
a lot of vanilla in it then.
Because I'm not really a prune guy, so I don't think I like prunes.
Well, see, you need to go to your doctor.
Yeah. You'll be a prune guy maybe when you're like 80.
Oh, it won't take that long. Here he comes up. I love this. He's coming up over the ridge.
Yeah.
Godzilla?
Yeah.
To the volcano.
Oh, no. There goes Tokyo.
He's going to yeet himself into the volcano.
So did you guys like that Mike Nesmith little video? Did you see that? The Rodanne. Her name was Rodanne.
Yeah, I didn't get it. What was that was weird.
Well, he's just a fan of Godzilla movies and stuff too, and it gave him an opportunity to put on some monster feet and stomp on stuff. And he just wrote a silly song that made a play on the title of the movie Rodanne. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's a quote I wrote down from the dialogue. He's a product of civilization. Men are the real monsters.
Yeah.
Is that a tagline?
That was in the beginning, and it was one of the characters said it.
Oh.
One of the Japanese guys.
A tagline.
An interesting thing about when I was a kid, one of the first horror movies I saw was Attack of the Mushroom People. And I didn't realize...
Matango.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this until I got older. I was like a teenager when I saw it again and discovered that it was Japanese. When I was a kid, I did not remember that it was Japanese.
You just thought it was a scary movie.
I just thought it was a scary movie. So I thought that was really interesting that as a 4-year-old kid, I did not in any way see that as, different than, I didn't see any difference between an American film and a Japanese film. Because I was so young.
Is it over?
No.
Oh, Brian, tell us about how you went to Japan.
He's getting to the volcano now. They're about to set off their charges.
Tell us about your Japanese trip.
Before that, let me just say this. It's like they figured out something about Godzilla, how to manipulate him and how to defeat him in a way that it's never going to be used on movie ever again.
Well, this Godzilla's dead anyway. So
Well, so I went to college in Japan in the Kobe, the Edmonds Community College Japan campus in Kobe.
oh, and how did that all happen?
I just had read about it and I wanted to go.
And so you just made it your business to go to Japan.
I went with my friend Robert, but after the earthquake happened, he went home. So he was only there for like a couple of weeks, but I stayed and finished out my quarter. I also took a Japanese word processing class that was like a nightmare because I couldn't compete. I couldn't compete with other Japanese people on a typewriter, so I had to drop out of that class.
Everybody's so sad that Godzilla's dying.
So how long were you there for?
1 quarter, so 3 months, I think.
Which is how long?
3 months,
okay.
yeah.
And what city was that?
Kobe.
Which is near where?
In sort of near. I mean, Kobe's a big coastal city. It's near Osaka.
Okay, Osaka.
Yeah.
So from Tokyo, which is Narita Airport and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not very close to Tokyo. I would have had to take the bullet train to get there. I had planned on doing that, but then I couldn't after the earthquake.
So what part of the United States did you leave from to go to Japan?
From Seattle area.
Is that where you used to live, in Seattle?
Yeah.
Oh. Just curious.
Here's the part. Yeah, we're at the emotional climax of the movie, and now Raymond Burr is giving his final narration where everybody just poses for the camera.
Yeah.
And they have a helicopter with the...
And it's very serious and somber and depressing.
Yeah.
And if it was me, I would have ended the end credit scene with the Blue Oyster Cult Godzilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they could have gotten the rights for that from Toho, but I would have ended it with Akira Ikefube, some classic, Godzilla.
Sure.
Dun 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 dun
Yeah.
dun 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 dun. And then you could look forward. You could look forward to a sequel, at the very, very end with just a, Godzilla roar.
That was a good roar, dude.
Well, and they do in the ending of the American version, they do make him roar to say that yes, he's still alive.
He's coming back.
Yeah,
he's never dead. Yeah, that was one of the I heard. For the American version of Godzilla, the one with Matthew Broderick and stuff, that they had a contract with them that left certain things in the contract that they could not break, and they did break them anyway. But one of them was the fact, that you had to use the same roar. You had to have Godzilla's roar. He had to have the same number of toes, like 4 toes and I think 4 fingers, 4 claws.
And he can't eat people.
Right.
Yeah.
He can't eat people. At least not, supposed to. They can break these rules. They did. And the design, his back spines, he's supposed to have 3 rows of back spines, and they only gave him 1. And, they didn't even like the design. They brought the design to a meeting where they had a sheet over it, and they pulled the sheet off, and all the executives from Toho, it was just silence in the room.
Yeah.
Nobody liked it.
Yeah.
Did the guy have to cut off his little pinky or something after that?
You might think so, but no, they just...
You have brought shame onto our studio.
Right. They had them, private discussion. They said, give us a moment, and they went off and talked. But they just said to themselves, gee, they want to give us hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. Our budgets are low. Let's take the money. Let's let them do their thing. And so they did. And then afterwards, nobody cared. A couple years later, Japan made their own, Godzilla movie, another new Godzilla movie, and they put our American design, because it looked like Shere Khan, it had a big chin, they put that in their movie. And they didn't even call it Godzilla. They just called it Zilla.
Yeah, in Godzilla Final Wars in 2008.
They make fun of him, yeah.
Yeah. They called him a tuna-eating...
Zilla.
Yeah.
So after this, we would have Godzilla vs. Violante, where Tanaka and Tomiyama chose a mostly new creative team to make those movies from then on. So it was, I think, Kazuki Omori would write them and direct them, and FX director was Koichi Kawakita. So they would become the architects of the Heisei Godzillas. Kawakita would handle the special
Hensei,
effects.
No, there's no N. It's Heisei.
Heisei.
And so Omori went on to write and direct Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah and the screenplays for Godzilla and Mothra, The Battle for Earth, and Godzilla vs. Destroyer.
Yeah.
And those are some good movies. I mean, there's some great designs of monsters in some of those movies, man.
Yeah. That's the best series of all of them.
Yeah, that's what you have. All your toys are from, right? You don't have
mostly.
any from the Shue. You don't have any Shue, do you?
Yeah, I do. I have some
You do?
Godzillas from, and I have Gigon and Megalo.
Classic Ghidra. You had a classic Ghidra, huh?
Yeah. And Mecha Godzilla. I have the 70s Mecha Godzilla.
I love that they make King Ghidorah be like this golden like creature. It's amazing monster. Yeah. But so Godzilla vs. Violante picks up right after this one, which kind of keeps the continuity going.
Which, Christopher Young has done a lot of music for a lot of films, and they have used it a lot, in commercials and as temp tracks for other people's films before they get their final score written and stuff.
Well, and speaking of connections to Clive Barker, we were talking about the 1998 Godzilla. Clive Barker was asked to direct that.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean, he turned it down.
Have you guys ever heard of the version that Steve Miner from the Friday the 13th and films like that was going to do of San Francisco, a Godzilla, way back in the 80s when I went to Japan? I
with
saw
like
storyboards.
a gargoyle or something as a bad guy.
Really?
Yeah, like a flying creature, an original American,
like
an American design.
I have to look into that. Who was going to write this? Who?
It's a script and everything. The storyboards were done by a guy by the name of Bill Stout, and I had dealings with him because of my 1985 involvement with Japan. There was a special effects exhibition that took place in the Tobu department store in Tokyo, and I was employed on that project for the Aero agency, and Bill Stout was involved in that, and he did the storyboards for this. And Steve Miner from the Friday the 13th films was the director on that.
And was this going to be
didn't get made? Did not
kaiju movie?
Godzilla.
Yeah, it was an American Godzilla movie that never got made. Yeah.
And then eventually the one that got made was the one in 98 with Matthew Broderick, right?
Yeah.
And half this cast of Simpsons.
Right, yeah.
Right. Hank Azaria.
Yeah.
I
like
like
that being kind of a turkey.
I like it. Most people don't like that movie, but it's like it's its own little thing in its own universe. It's fine.
I agree. I agree. If it wasn't called Godzilla, I'd have no problem with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like most of the other movies are connected to each other anyway. Let them have their weird design of this Godzilla movie with, it's a pretty good cast.
I like the design too, just as a monster. I have a friend, Colin Christian, the guy who helped on a lot of the Cenobium artwork and covers, and fold-outs and stuff. Yeah. He loves that design. When I met him, this 1985 Godzilla, not 85, the 90 whatever, the Matthew Broderick one was just about to come out, and he was raving about this design. He loved that design, and I know some of the people like Steve Wang worked on this Godzilla with Matthew Broderick, that design, and Patrick Tatopoulos. He's the one that designed it, and his company, built all the monsters, all the little baby Godzillas and everything for it.
Isn't he married to Mackenzie Westmore or something? I think so.
It could be because they were both involved on the Face Off show a lot.
Right. Yes. I think they're married. Yeah. I found a Wikipedia article about this Steve Miner unproduced Godzilla King of the Monsters in 3D. So it says here it was going to be developed in '83 by Steve Miner, and he was attached to direct, and he shopped it around Hollywood and generated some interest, but was unable to secure funding, and the rights reverted to Toho. And it says here that the plot looks a little convoluted, but a meteorite was going to collide with an American defense satellite, which was going to trigger a nuclear missile to launch towards the Earth. Sounds familiar after we just saw.
Yeah.
The missile detonates in the middle of the South Pacific, which awakens a giant reptilian creature on the ocean floor. A Japanese fishing vessel, again, tropey thing, the Lucky Dragon 5, I guess, reference, is towed to San Francisco for examination after it recently disappeared. Journalist Dana Martin, again a journalist, and Dana
And
Martin.
Yeah.
I wonder
Martin.
if it's Steve Martin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sneaks onto the ship and finds a perfectly preserved trilobite. She finds a burned survivor whose last
Like in
words are
this film,
Gojira.
the
Yeah.
trilobite
Yeah.
thing.
The sea lice, yeah. Martin takes the trilobite to the paleobiologist, again, Hayashida, the
From the
biologist.
Institute of Hayashida.
And dinosaur expert Gerald Ballinger, who seems skeptical about the fossil's authenticity. On Odo Island in Tahiti, an American Special Forces squad come into contact with a giant reptilian monster who lays waste to a nearby village. And then, okay, there's a sunken Russian submarine. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it seems like he was drinking
lots of
from
similarities. They've been mining
this
script for years, I guess.
Yeah. So if you look it up, Wikipedia, Godzilla King of the Monsters in 3D.
And Mr. Bill Stout did the storyboards, and you can find those, I think, online and stuff too.
Yeah,
big
Jose,
difference
can
is
you
that
put that into the show notes in the
Sure,
note?
sure. The only difference is that Godzilla wouldn't arise in the Tokyo Bay. He would arise in the San Francisco
San
Bay.
Francisco, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the storyboards where you can see these awesome shots of the Bay Bridge and the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, with Godzilla, treading the waters, and, the San Francisco Transamerica Pyramid and the Coit Tower in the background and stuff.
It says here that Fred Decker wrote the screenplay for this unproduced movie. Fred
Decker's a good writer. He wrote The Monster Squad and stuff like that.
And they were the special effects section here says that a special subtitled screening of the Japanese version of the original Godzilla film was held at Century City to generate interest for the project. Miner intended to use miniature stop motion animation, like you said, Ed, and suitmation. I guess that's the guy in a rubber suit, as there were no computer effects available at the time. David W. Allen was hired to provide the stop motion effects.
Oh, he was a brilliant stop motion animator who's passed away now, unfortunately.
Okay. Allen managed to build a stop motion prototype, while Stephen
Cercarus, I believe is how you pronounce it. He's been involved with paleontology and dinosaurs and stuff for decades.
Oh, well, he created the articulated stop motion animation figure, and then Rick Baker was going to be hired to build a full scale animatronic Godzilla head, but apparently never got around to building it. Yeah,
Wouldn't that have been awesome?
That would have been amazing. Yeah, and nowadays we have Cloverfield, I guess, kind of.
Well, actually, I think a lot of people would agree that Cloverfield is directly inspired by Godzilla. And the thing that, Ryan mentioned about the found footage aspect of it, I agree. I'm not a big fan of found footage stuff,
Yeah.
And I like Cloverfield.
You start out knowing that all these characters are going to die, and it sort of takes away from the suspense a little bit.
Yeah, it's like knowing, the end of a movie, like like if you read the book, and you know the end,
And there was wasn't there like a movie that was supposed to be a first American-made kaiju film? What was it called? Gorgo? Is it Gorgo? I forgot.
No, that's British, but it is a great suit. It's a guy in a suit as well, and I love Gorgo. And have you ever heard of the? I believe it's Denmark or Sweden made one called Reptilicus. Yeah. It's called Reptilicus, and it's a puppet. It's more of a marionette, but it's I love this stuff. I'm a monster fan, me.
And these movies are not generally a lot of stuff from Japan comes out that's not necessarily a big monster or reptilian monster, but sometimes they're like you got the War of the Gargantuas, which are kind of like these giant creatures.
I love that.
Yeah. And sometimes you have
Frankenstein versus Baragon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And going back to what I grew up with, sometimes watching, not necessarily the Power Rangers, but other things of the time where the team is fighting a monster, and then all of a sudden the monster does something, and he grows to be like 100 feet tall or whatever.
Yeah, like Ultraman.
Yeah. And there was a giant samurai statue as well, right?
Oh, giant Majin.
Daimajin.
Yeah.
And Ryan owns all those. You got 3 of them, right, Ryan?
Yeah. Yeah, there's 3 Daimajin movies.
Yeah.
I love those. I have a model kit of that.
That's awesome.
Would you
Yeah.
consider like Q, the Winged Serpent, to be like a kaiju movie? It kind of is a little bit.
Any monster
Yeah,
that's
man.
giant is a kaiju, you know?
Yeah.
Daikaiju.
That's
Including when men, go giant, like Ultraman. Like he's normally sized, and then he used the beta capsule, and he's giant. So he's basically fighting kaijus,
Yeah.
And you got that movie about that giant bird, big as a battleship. That black and white film.
Oh, that would eat people. Shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I
You mean
can't.
the claw? The giant
claw. That's
giant
it.
claw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
I still wonder what. Somewhere in a warehouse, that creature has to be somewhere in a warehouse, like gathering dust and flaking into bits. Like I wonder.
It's long gone
what-
by now. This
Yeah.
stuff does not last. But what's ironic is one year I was at a convention, right around the time I met Nina in New Jersey. I was at the Chiller convention, and Greg Nicotero was there, and somebody had a resin model kit of that giant claw. It was gorgeous, and he bought it off the guy. And I saw Greg Nicotero walking across the dealer's hall, holding this thing up by the strings. It had little black threads holding it up, and he's walking across this dealer's hall, going caw, caw.
Amazing.
That's
great.
collector, boy.
Yeah.
He's got everything.
Anyway, so I hope that you guys had fun watching Godzilla in 1985.
We did. We had
It
fun.
was fun.
Yeah.
I loved meeting I got to meet the gentleman who designed and built the maquette for it in Japan.
That's awesome.
Yeah, when I went to Tokyo, and then I went to Osaka to the Kyoto model kit factory.
I found a making of for this movie, but it's like 43 minutes, but it's in Japanese, so I couldn't understand a word that they were saying. But I will add that one as well to the show notes.
I already copied it out of the chat.
Oh, great. Awesome.
I put it in the show notes.
Excellent.
I would love, after you watch that, Ryan, I would love to ask you some questions about if you can understand certain things about the special effects.
I don't know if I'm going to watch all of that.
Okay, well, all I'm interested in really is about the special effects aspects.
Okay.
Awesome. And so let us know what you think in the comments. Give us a review. Let us know if you've enjoyed this. And what are your thoughts on Godzilla or Tetsuo? And what is your favorite memory of watching Godzilla?
And
let us
share.
know.
Yes, share your memories. Give us your opinions,
Share with your
your
friends.
thoughts. What's your favorite Godzilla film? All of you out there in TV land.
I wrote when I was in my Japanese film class. I wrote a paper about how Godzilla was a part of the collective unconscious for in Japan, sort of like a regional collective unconscious.
Yes.
I would say it's part of my collective unconscious because I love everything about Japan and Godzilla and monsters and dinosaurs and all that stuff. I mean, I am a monster kid, so I can't help but love this stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of our generation was imprinted King Kong and Godzilla as a
trope in general.
Do you remember that rumor that in the Japanese version Godzilla wins and in the American version King Kong?
Oh yes.
It's not true.
Yeah,
it's not true, but everybody said that.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Before the age of the internet and IMDb.
Yeah.
Debunking rumors here, Ryan.
This was fun.
Sayonara. Okini arigato.
Matao. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. Watch for our annual Kickstarter fundraisers to get some cool stuff, and you can buy t-shirts on our TeePublic store. Go to tpublic.com and search for BarkerCast.
Thanks for listening.